You heard it here live on CBC News Network, an update from officials, including the fire department, the police department, the governor, the mayor's office, giving us some details as to what happened in Brooklyn, New York, on a subway train this morning during the commuter rush hour. We do know shots were fired. We do know some kind of smoke canister was opened up, and then there was chaos and calamity. Here are some of the details we got from officials. This coming from the police commissioner, Keishant Sewell, saying that no one is suffering life-threatening injuries. There was another question about this shooting incident, very important. It had to do with terrorism, and the police commissioner said this is not being investigated as an act of terrorism. But then later she was asked about it, and then she sort of seemed to hedge her bets and said she's not ruling anything out. I can tell you there is still a suspect on the loose, nobody in custody just yet. The governor, Kathy Hochul, was there. A very emotional statement from her. And let me quote, she says, for New Yorkers, we say no more. No more mass shootings, no more disrupting lives. It has to stop. And when referring to the past 2 years of the pandemic, she's referred to it as the insanity that is seizing our city. So we'll be watching for further reaction. There was also information about people who were shot or injured or suffered from some kind of shrapnel injury or smoke inhalation. From the New York Fire Department, they said they treated 16 people at the site. Then there were people taken to hospital, 10 suffering gunshot wounds, and 5 of those people in critical but stable condition. And some of the other wounds that people were suffering, as I mentioned, shrapnel, smoke inhalation, and in any understandable case, panic as well. CBC's Magda Gabriselassie is tracking this story, and she joins me live from Washington. All these details coming in, questions that we were posing as journalists before we got all of this information. Can you walk me through the suspect information that was released, Magda?
Yeah, so we got a little more information on that. We knew earlier that police were saying that they were looking for someone that was a black male. We heard that he was wearing a hoodie at this point, and that he may have been wearing a construction vest as well. And the main point is this suspect is still at large. We heard the governor say that this is still an active shooting situation because they are still trying to track down this suspect. But some clarity there. We weren't sure if we were dealing with one suspect, 2 suspects, if there was more. At this point, we now know it is one suspect that police are looking for. What I found interesting is that the police commissioner, right from the beginning, before she even got to the description on the suspects, the condition of the victims, or how many of them there are, the first thing that she said was that there were no known explosive devices that were found. And this, of course, was because initially the reports were that there had been non-detonated explosive devices that were found. So she made it clear there, no known explosive devices were found, and at this point that this is not being investigated as terrorism, but then later on said it's not being ruled out yet because it's still early in this investigation. From there, we heard a bit more about the victims. We got an updated number. Earlier, we were hearing 8, possibly 10. Now it's 16 victims, people that were injured, various injuries. But of those 16 victims, we heard that several of them were shot. About 10 of the victims had gunshot wounds. 5 of them are in critical but in stable condition, is what we heard. And of course, aside from those that have the gunshot wounds, there were other injuries that we heard about as well. Earlier, we were talking about smoke inhalation, possibly people being injured in maybe trying to escape what was going on. So again, still an active shooter investigation here. They're still looking for this suspect, and they're asking people to, if they have videos, if they have pictures, if they have any information, to contact them, is what they're saying. And what we heard about, how this all played out, it was around 8:24 in the morning. we heard that this started on the train, that it started on one of the cars, and that this suspect pulled out a gas mask and then a canister, and then there was smoke, and then the shooting began. So that's how it started. But we heard her say that people on the actual train were shot, as well as people on the platform. So a very chaotic situation. We've heard from different witnesses throughout this morning, different perspectives from where they were about what took place. But now we have confirmation, in fact, that this started on the train before spilling over onto the platform.
And that was one of the questions that you and I were, bandying about earlier when we did not have those details, because it seems that there were eyewitnesses who said the train car doors opened and there was smoke, which would lead one to assume it was already on the platform. But,
Right.
In these times, imagine, what is 8:26 in the morning or 8:24 in the morning like in New York on the N train during rush hour coming through, people heading to work, people going to school, wherever they may be going. Police are going to have to sift through all of this information, Makta.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's understandable that there would be different accounts, different descriptions of what was happening at that time. It's very possible that from that witness that described the doors opening and seeing smoke that they may have been on one of the cars that was further back away from this particular car. I'm not certain if this is a train station that has trains going in opposite directions. It's possible if that's the case, then maybe they were on a train on the opposite side of this platform. A lot can go on in a situation like this. It's people are it's frenzied. There's a lot happening. There are people in different positions taking in what's happening. So you would expect that there could be different accounts of what took place. But we have confirmation now that this did start on the train, that this suspect not only shot people on the train, but also people on the platform as well. And we got this update that there are more victims than we had heard of earlier this morning. It's been increased now, the number of victims, to 16 victims, 10 of them suffering from gunshot wounds. But an interesting point that the police commissioner made is that none of the victims at this point appear to have life-threatening injuries. So a bit of good news there. But again, this is a very early situation. We're going to continue to get updates on the suspect, on the victims, on what's happening, how much, what witnesses are saying as the day goes on. We're expecting another update later this afternoon, and probably several as the authorities get more information to share with us.
All right, Makta, thank you for that.